So over the past year or so, I made two crucial mistakes. Um, maybe three actually. First, I started playing War Thunder, then I sunk a lot of hours into it, and then I also put a fuck ton of money in it. However, this has led me to have every top tier premium. Um, yeah. So let's make a video with all of them. So it was all worth it. All right, starting with the US. So for the US, you have quite a few top tier premiums. Let's start with the big one, the clickbait. So the clickbait is definitely a great vehicle. Really good 5 second reload, excellent mobility, great gun handling, yeah, really good turret rotation speed. It's very snappy, right? This is a very snappy vehicle. I'll show it in the test drive, but yeah, this is definitely a very fun vehicle. Um, uh, very good, turns fast, great shell, just really no faults, except maybe one massive fault. Your neck is just awful, right? The thing is, this goes for all Abramses. So no matter what it's the 10-3, whether it's the squadron vehicle, whether it's this thing, whether it's any of the other ones, every single one has massive armor issues where yeah, it is not ideal. It is definitely not ideal. You can see, this neck, like sure your lower plate is also dog shit, right? Anyone will go through this. But this neck will basically always be visible, and it's not great. It's definitely not great. So as long as you can play around that weakness, you have a really fun tank, and it's definitely one of my favorites. And then I guess the other issue is that the US is probably the most popular nation to play, and they have an 11.3 premium that has been out quite a few times and has been on sale. Um, so not ideal. Your teams are probably the worst in the game. Um, but the vehicle itself is great. So yeah, if you don't mind horrible teammates, and if you don't mind having a glaring weakness, which is your neck, then this is a really good vehicle for you. Really fun to play. I personally think it's not bad to have a weakness in the neck because it does teach you how to play a little bit. But yeah, that's just the Abrams. For the M1 KVT, it's kind of rinse and repeat because this is really the same vehicle in many ways. This is essentially they're both like the very same, like tier for tier they're pretty similar. The M1 KVT is probably a bit better. This doesn't have a good shell like the clickbait does, but it still has like the same kind of rotation speed. It still has a really good reload. It's really good. The only issue is that it does have a 105 millimeter gun instead of a 120 millimeter, so you don't do as much damage. You don't do as much post plant damage. Like you can see here, this does 372 millimeters. This does like 600, close enough to, yeah, 598. So that's a massive difference. Wolfpack, I would say good vehicle. You could take this up to top tier even, it'll be fine. It has a really good shell, and that's what really makes this vehicle. 522 millimeters at 10.0, right? So this one only had less than 400. This is more than 500, even though this is a slightly lower BR than the KBT. So you can see kind of there, like already, like oh, this is a pretty good vehicle for its tier. And it also has really great mobility. Well, at least it has high speed potential. It doesn't Your horsepower is not great or anything. Your transmission, you don't shoot off the rails or anything. But you can get up to high speed, so it's a pretty good flanking vehicle. The one fault I have with this vehicle is that the gun depression is pretty annoying. It's only 5 degrees, which is like Russia level territory. Um, and yeah, that sucks. The reload also isn't great. It does have an autoloader, so if you don't want to spend money on your crew skills, you can kind of get away with it here. And also, of course, you have no armor whatsoever. This is just a infantry riding vehicle, right? So yeah, I'd say this is a very good vehicle. That's great for if you're already a bit more experienced. As a beginner, you can try and use the vehicle, and it will teach you a lot about not getting shot. Because no matter what tank you're in, you don't want to be shot. Um, But yeah, so it's an iffy situation. I wouldn't recommend it to a straight beginner. Germany, nation I haven't really played, but I've played a lot of the Leopards because I have Sweden fully grounded out. So I kind of still know what I'm talking about because if you don't know, the Leopards and the Christian 2 and the Stritzwagen 121s are basically the same vehicle. Well, basically, they are exactly the same vehicle. So Leopard 2 is a wonderful vehicle. It's great. Mobility is great. Armor isn't incredible, but it'll it's easily enough. It doesn't have like the glaring weakness that an Abrams does. Although like at the parts where the Abrams armor, like on the cheeks where it's best, this is not as good. It's still a really good vehicle to use, and I do recommend it. I think the Leopard 2 is an excellent beginner's vehicle. Um, yeah, it's great. Then when it comes to the Leopard 2A 4M, this is basically an upgraded Leopard 2. Um, and I personally take off all the armor and mine protection. And as you can see, it adds about 3 tons of weight, a bit less than 3 tons of weight even. Now, I really like this vehicle. I think this is a really fun vehicle. You got a really, really good shell at 11.3. Sure, you're not an 11.7 Leopard, right? Because you're only an upgraded Leopard, Leopard 2A4. However, armor is pretty good. You do get your one weak spot, which is here, right? This is yeah. Let me go into protection analysis actually. But yeah, you can see your turret works really well. Your neck is a weak spot technically, but actually I need to do the proper shell. Um, there you go. Yeah, your turret armor you can see it works really well. This doesn't really work now. Your neck is technically a weak spot, but it's really hard to hit this compared to the Abrams. Your lower plate definitely a bit of a weak spot. As you can see here, bringing a lot of ammo also is an issue because you go boom. And then this is also weak spot because um, well, yeah, you like compared to the regular leopards, you have a hole here because it's upgraded to A4 as opposed to an actual 2A5 or an upgraded 2A5. Overall, though, I think this is a really fun vehicle. You don't get this like by taking away the armor and stuff, you get the mobility that you get with the older leopards. You don't even get that with the 11.7 leopards. So I actually kind of like this a lot more. I have played 11.7 leopards in Sweden. Um, so yeah, I really like this one. You could take off the thing and have like your great mobility while getting an excellent shell. And the other thing that this leopards get is really great thermals, which also a lot of the leopard 2A5 and 2A6 don't really have. So you have great thermals, great mobility, um, a okay shell for or a pretty good shell for top tier standard. But for 11.3 standard, really great shell. Yeah, really good vehicle. I do recommend playing it. Russia or USSR. Yeah, so the big thing here, the elephant in the room, you have a whole 10-0 lineup, and this 10-0 lineup is great. 2 is 38, very mean vehicle. Very very mean. It has a decent mobility, but overall, the big thing about this vehicle is that it just has a infinite clip now, and a great autoloader. So I mean, if you see a vehicle, right, like you see, oh, this is a plane, you could just shoot it down. This is technically a light vehicle, but you can keep shooting infinitely. You can just keep going like this, and then clear everything out. Um, it's not technically meant to fight people from aspects. So yeah, maybe don't fight everyone from aspect all the time. It is a good Venker vehicle, but you can just keep shooting infinitely. And you have for the BR and for the fire speed, your caliber is great. Like you have 200 millimeters of pen. As you can see here, yeah, so 225 millimeters of pen, which is phenomenal. This is not something you get on other 10.0 like auto-loaded guns. Like for example, if you go back to the US, something you also get a 10.0 is a Bradley, and this only gets like 100 millimeters, right? So you have more than double than that. Then again, Bradley does have tow missiles, which they kind of need to take up that role. But yeah, this is just such a yeah good vehicle that it has everything. Like this is a really good vehicle. It has anti-air capabilities. It has excellent pen. The only thing it's missing is a tow missile, but it doesn't need it because the pen is phenomenal. Then we have the 280 UD. This is a scandalous vehicle, bro. This is disgusting. So if you go to Sweden, they have this vehicle, right? A T80U. This is an 11.0 vehicle. It's fine. Um, it's not the best 11.0, probably, but yeah, it's fine. You get the 3BM42, which has a good penetration. Well, not really for the BR, but yeah, for 460 millimeters of pen, fine penetration. Um, it's great, right? So uh, the T80UD then compared to it, it's the same vehicle except it's slightly slower and it doesn't get thermals, which obviously brings it down a full BR. Um, don't ask me how it makes sense. Gaijin cooked this one up. Um, I think this needs to be moved up, but it hasn't been moved up for months now, so it probably won't. This is just a disgusting vehicle. You have 11.0 or even 11.3 armor because it's the same as this vehicle as well, except this gets a better shell. This at 10.0 gets the same shell as the 11.0 vehicle. Don't ask me how it makes sense. This is just a disgusting vehicle. Literally, it's an 11.0 vehicle, including the armor, including the really good ERA. The only difference is that it doesn't get thermals and it's slightly slower. So there you go. That's a full BR down. Normally this will be one BR step, but or Gaijin. There's no Russian bias. Don't worry about that. So anyway, next vehicle in line, T72AV. This used to be a really good vehicle, but then they brought out the T80UD. It's still playable, of course, but the issue is that um, both these vehicles don't have really great reverse. But this one especially is yeah quite horrid. I'll show it in game right now, but it's not phenomenal. It's not great. So your reverse is really bad. Your movement to the front isn't as good as the TDUD. What do you get in return? Well, you get thermals. You get good thermals. Yeah, but compared to the TDUD, this is definitely it's not as good, right? So the 280UD struggles with reversing, but the 272AV is worse at reversing. The 280UD compared to at least the T80U um, has worse movement, but this has more worse front like forward movement as well. Um, this is a better reload. This is better armor. This is a better turret rotation speed. Everything is better about the TDD, bro. The only difference, the only kind of selling point for this is that it does get thermals. So if you really love thermals, the T72AV has pretty good ones in terms. Uh, then there's also the T80U E1. This is essentially just a TDU, but it gets a TDUD turret. Um, and really good thermals. Um, so yeah, this is a really great vehicle. It does get better speed, right, compared to this. As you can see, this only has 1,000 horsepower engine. This has 1,250. Um, the T80s in general are all very light vehicles, but this gets a relatively good shell, 3BM46. Um, not as good as like the KW that we saw on like the German vehicle. But still, it's fine. But the T80 in general is a very nice vehicle. Don't get shot from the side because you will explode because of the silly autoloader system that the Russians have implemented. But as you can see, outside of this obvious weak spot, it's a pretty good vehicle. And if you look at protection analysis also, um, you can see that this vehicle does quite well. This is, penetration is not really possible here. I guess it went through on this occasion, but usually it won't. Um, yeah, your turret you can't really pan. This is just an annoying vehicle to deal with, and as long as it's from the front at least. However, I personally wouldn't really recommend it, and that's because having multiple vehicles to spawn is really fun and makes a massive difference in my opinion. So I would personally look to play the 10-0 lineups. Your teammates at 10-0 will be horrible because you have a 10-0 premium lineup, but I think you'll have more fun just because if you die once, you don't have to one that leave. Sure, you can only invest in like a 280 UD at first and see how that goes, and then if you like playing it, you can add like the 238, maybe the 272 AV terms to your lineup. You can eventually start researching the BMP2 as a squadron vehicle, and you'd have a phenomenal lineup at 10-0. That is just really good. So yeah, uh, this is definitely a really fun vehicle, the 11.3. But I would personally try to stick to the 10-0 lineup just because you have more of a backup. Uh, and sure, at 11.3 you can have like the squadron vehicle, but the squadron vehicle doesn't have research efficiency for most of the tech tree, so you'll only really be able to get to play it either if you accept that you get less RP, which kind of defeats the purpose of getting a premium, or if you already have grinded most of the tech tree. But then you're also closer to TDU, so having a lineup is no longer really an issue. So yeah, I just stick to 10-0. For Great Britain, yeah, this was my first nation I ever played, and oh, it was awful. So the Challenger DS is an okay vehicle, because it's 10-0. That's kind of the big thing. But the thing about all the Challengers is that they are extremely heavy and they don't have the best engine. Um, Before that issue was solved with the Challenger 2E, which gets a 1500 horsepower engine when next, as well as the Challenger 330D, which also did. But then they nerfed the Challenger 330D to from 1500 to 1200, so that it's not only like one of the heaviest MBTs, but it's also the one with the least engine power. Overall, I don't really love playing Britain. If you, even though I've played it a lot, if you look at like this vehicle, it's extremely heavy. As you can see, it has also like all these add-ons. This is 75 tons, right? And that compared to the other ones, is at least like 10 tons heavier. Add to that the engine is kind of subpar, and you just have a really unfun vehicle. Like, if you like mobility, and I sure do, this is just not the vehicle for you. As you can see, this is just for it. Um, you know, this just takes forever compared to other vehicles. If you know what all the vehicles are like, this is just extremely slow and kind of frustrating to play. Your shell is good. Your reload is good at least for the first 5 bullets because you have like a 5-second reload, as well as the Abrams. Um, it all works, right? Your tank is functional. Your armor, not ideal. Especially your lower plate is really bad, but your gun breach is also really weak. So you're gonna get your gun shut out constantly. So if you really like not moving and just sitting there repairing, then maybe you don't mind the challengers. But I don't love the challengers. I really don't. The 10-3 vehicle is playable because at least you're not against all top tier vehicles that are all really good, and especially because you get like a really fun 10-3 helicopter in the G-Links. That really makes this quite fun. I personally would still stay away from this. What I did and what I recommend is playing the Roycat and the Khalid. Roycat, really hard vehicle to play for beginners, but excellent mobility and a really good shell for 9.3. Khalid, also a really good shell. This is essentially an upgraded chieftain. The armor isn't phenomenal at all. However, because it has worse armor than the Mark 10, for example. However, it has a much better engine. As you can see, this has 672 horsepowers, which makes this a miserable vehicle to play, just like the Challengers. But the Khalid has 1200. Well, look at that. It's a really big upgrade. So if you enjoy having mobility, I would recommend the 9.3 vehicles. The only gripe with them is that they're 9.3, and 9.3 is a horrible BR because there's so many 10.0 and 10.3 premiums, so you're gonna see up tiers constantly. I personally think these vehicles are somewhat up tier proof because they have really good shells and they rely more so on their mobility than their armor. So your armor was never really a thing to, not really a notable point anyway. So having more powerful vehicles isn't really a big concern. Um, but still, up tiers are never fun. So yeah, Britain is just. I would personally not recommend grinding Britain. If you do want to grind Britain, I'd recommend getting like a Roycat or a Khalid or both because they do make a fun lineup. If you really want a rank 7 premium though, so that you can grind out all the tech tree because this won't be able to grind out the rank 8 stuff. That frankly you don't want, but if you're convinced yourself and that you do want to play Britain, I would say stick to the Challenger 2, or yeah, the Challenger 1, I mean. The Challenger 2 OES is just really, really emo. This is an extremely slow vehicle. It's not very fun to play. Japan, so they have the Type 16 FPS, which is really good, but it's not quite the top tier vehicle, and it's also at 9.3. It's kind of comparable to the Roycat, but it has less favorable gun handling, less good of a shell, but it gets much better thermals and slightly better protection. But this vehicle, Type 90B, oh my, I love this vehicle. This vehicle gets a decent shell, um, but more important than anything, it gets a 4-second auto reload. Your reload is so fast, bro. Like you can just shoot and shoot and shoot all day, and there's just nothing anyone can do about it. You're just boom. It's so fucking fast. This is about the fastest reload. It is the fastest reload you can get at top tier. 11.0 is a pretty fun BR as well because you do get down tiers quite frequently. Um, and when you do get up tiers, you only get up tiered into like 11.7 tanks, right? Which aren't much better than you anyway. Your armor is nothing. This is essentially a downgraded Leopard 2A4, which if you remember that was a 10.3. So the armor is worse than that. However, what you get in return is obviously an autoloader that does 4 seconds as opposed to the 6 seconds you see um, with your leopards. You have a pretty good shell. You have also what's really cool is that you get yeah, you can do this. Your tank can turn to the left, to the right, um, which is really cool, especially doing like this, where yeah, your engine is higher up. This means you have essentially much more gun depression, right? Because your gun is always going to be pointing downwards a bit. So if you do like to play hold on positions, even though your turrets will not withstand shots, you can peek really fast and get out, or you could just look cool, I guess. So even though this doesn't have the best gun depression on its own, only 7 degrees compared to like 10 you normally see with a leopard, or I think you get 9 actually. Um, it does have this ability to just turn, which is really cool. Um, yeah, so Type 90, the vehicle I do recommend. It's a really fun vehicle to play. Really fast, as you can see. It trimmed down like 5 tons of the Leopard, which gave it more mobility. Really fast reload. If you just like fast-paced gameplay, you're gonna love the Type 90B. It's a really cool vehicle, and it's very similar to what you get in like the top tier ones. Compared to this, like the top tier vehicles, they essentially are very similar. The armor is slightly better, although it's also lower in weight. I don't know how they did it, but yeah, the engine power is worse, but it's lower weight, so the mobility is about equal, and you just get a better shell. Essentially, I'd say it's a pretty tier for tier kind of thing. You can see the shell is better. It's 615 compared to the 481 that you get with the Type 90, but yeah, it's fine, right? The shell here is fine. This gets a better shell. That's kind of the main thing, and slightly better armor, but don't rely on it. Because this is a vehicle that's supposed to be really fast, that's supposed to flank and whatnot, not so much tank shots. If you want tank shots, don't play Japan. At least not top tier Japan. China. So China only has really one vehicle there. This vehicle's alright. It's kind of similar to the terms. It has the same kind of autoloader system. It has the same horrible reverse speed, but because it's pretty light, it also is kind of like a little bit faster when you go forward. I would say the big thing about this is that it has a really good shell as well. And then again, the terms is too for its PR, so it's nothing that's too crazy there. But yeah, this is kind of just a Chinese terms, but not really. I kind of can show it in game. Um, yeah, I mean you don't really have any other options if you want to grind China. But this vehicle is fine. I do enjoy playing it from time to time. The lower plate is really weak. You can even die to like auto cannons. That's kind of the big issue with this, but in many ways it's a chill vehicle that's pretty fun to play. And if you want something different for now and then, this is good. The reverse is better than the T-72 in the Russian tech tree, uh, but it's better by a whole 2 kilometers, so this goes -6 instead of -4. So the reverse is definitely still an issue. I want to say China is a. I mean, yeah, if you want to play China, you know you want to play China. If you don't really care for China, I wouldn't be pursued into this. If you don't really care what nation you want to play, it's probably better just to stick to like the USSR because they have like a whole lineup at 10.0, which makes it beginner friendly, or maybe like Germany or something. Or actually, Sweden is really good as a starting nation as well because they have a good lineup. But I'll get to those. All right, Italy. For Italy, they only have like the one premium, the Centauro RGO. This is kind of a side grade from the Centauro 120. It has worse mobility by nature of how being like heavier, but it's technically get better armor, I guess. But then again, this is um, a armored fighting vehicle, so it doesn't really have armor anyway. Um, it is fun, it is fast, it has a good shell, it has a good reload. This is definitely a playable vehicle, but it's a particular kind of playstyle that you have to be into. If you really like build vehicles, maybe you played like a Roycat or the VRCC or the Type 16 in the Japanese tree, you might enjoy this, but it's definitely not for everyone. An Italian tech tree now is okay because they have like the Hungarian subtree and you can get the Leopard 2A7, which is pretty good. But if you're the Arietas are not that great. If you like wheeled vehicles though, the Italian tree is definitely something for you. You got the Frezia, you got the Centauros, you got this Centauro. It's really good. Um, but yeah, I personally wouldn't really recommend this to beginners because this is not like the kind of if you came to this game because you like tanks, you're not gonna love the wheeled vehicles probably. If you do enjoy the wheeled vehicles though, this is a good pick, and this is kind of the only top tier wheeled vehicle premium that you can get as well. So yeah, France doesn't actually have any rank 7 premiums. However, the thing is, France is a pretty weird tech tree. They jump from 9.7 to 11.7, so there's nothing in between there. And at rank 7, you already have essentially what are your top tier vehicles. These ones are not straight upgrades, they're more like side grades. Um, they all have the same shell, they all have the same like engine, they all are roughly the same. Just the ones that are above the Leclerc are slightly heavier. Um, like but they trade off things. Like this gets a 50 millimeter. I want to say, yeah, it gets a 50 millimeter gun turret. This gets a commander thermals. This gets, I think, slightly more armor. That's about it. But overall, all of these Leclercs are pretty similar, and these vehicles will make you get, at least the first Leclerc, and from there you can maybe just talisman that and get all the rest of them. So where most of the time getting a rank 6 premium is kind of an issue because it means that you can't get the top tier stuff. Here you sort of can. Like you get the top tier experience from rank 7 already. because it's an 11.7 vehicle at rank 7. Now for the actual vehicles here, the AMX 30 Super, a really, really good vehicle for 9.3. Armor is nothing to write home about, but it's okay. Mobility is really good. The shell is good. Everything is good, right? This is a fun vehicle to play. Really good. I enjoy it. However, it's a 9.3 vehicle, and it's a 9.3 MBT. So it has a similar issue that I talked about Britain. You get constant uptears. If you don't mind playing in a just a objectively worse vehicle against 10.3s all day every day, yeah, the AMX30 Super, really great vehicle, fun to pick up. Mm, but I think you're gonna get tired of it eventually. You might say now, like, oh, I want the French factory, I'll put up with it, but it gets tiring quickly because just getting up tiers all day isn't fun, and every now and then a down tier is pretty nice. This has a similar issue. It also gets up there to 10.3 and 10.0, but at least it's less of an up there because it's 9.7. Then again, this is a very particular vehicle as well, where this is a autocannon type vehicle that shoots really fast, sure. Um, Jesus, accident. That shoots really fast, sure. But the issue is that you can't pen shit. Um, and that's kind of just the annoying part. So if you enjoy penning stuff, um, yeah, you have to flank essentially. You have to flank in this vehicle, or you have to play really passively and only shoot at targets that you can shoot at. If you shoot at light armored vehicles, this is phenomenal. You're gonna go straight through them. Your mobility is fantastic. So you can also flank because the mobility is good, but you are kind of forced into that one playstyle, which I don't love. I've been grinding out the French Tectrius of late, and it's not been fun. These two vehicles, the AMX30 Super, good vehicle. However, it doesn't really matter because you just get up tiers anyway. And the VBCI2, um, good vehicle. I guess they can't really decrease it because it's the same BR as like Leopard ones, which you will go straight through for the most part. But yeah, it's just a bit of a sad situation where your pen is just not great because you have an autocannon. So yeah, you have 160 millimeters of pen, and that's it. Um, yeah, it's a rough situation. I wouldn't recommend friends to beginners because neither of these vehicles is too friendly. Uh, but then we get to Sweden, and here the story is quite different. So I've grinded out the entirety of Sweden with air and ground. I'm looking to the helicopters now, but Sweden is really, really fun. So a 10-3 vehicle, this is just a Leopard, right? The Leopard 2A4. The only difference is that it has a more modern weapon firing system. What does that mean? Well, nothing because you aim with your mouse here anyway. But that does mean it gets less smokes. It has 8 smokes instead of 16. That's the only difference compared to the Leopard 2A4. So, but then again, 8 smokes will probably be enough, especially if you're just starting out. If you're really comfortable with this vehicle, you might run out of smokes. But if you capture a point every now and then, you get your smokes back anyway, so that doesn't really matter. This is essentially just a carbon copy of the Leopard 2A4, which makes it a phenomenal vehicle for beginners. And what also makes this vehicle great is that you have the CV90-105 next to it. Now, this is a vehicle I really, really enjoy. Compared to the other Leopard, like compared to, not, this is not a Leopard, compared to the Leopard, this has better thermals. And it also is really good when it comes to reloads. The shell is good. So yeah, if you want a great shell, a great mobility, a great reload, um, yeah, vehicle, that's what this is, right? It's great at everything, except this is still a light vehicle, and yeah, it's a light vehicle, right? That's kind of the thing. So because it's a light vehicle, um, you run into the issue where um, you can just kind of get penned by anything. You can get penned by even the VBCI2, what I was just ranting about in the French tech tree. You get penned by that as well. So you get pen about just about anything. You don't have a lot of wiggle room, but I think that makes it a good vehicle to learn how to play Vorturner in, because you never really want to be shot regardless of what vehicle you're in. So this really teaches you that. I think the Swedish tech tree is really good as a starter nation. You get a sort of a lineup like the 10-3 and the 10-0. You can combo these vehicles together. Then you got at top tier, you got really, really great leopards. So Sweden has upgraded leopard 285s that have more armor, particularly on the lower plate, which makes them really survivable. I think overall, these are some really, really good vehicles. I think they're probably better than the German Leopards, which is kind of crazy, but that's how it is. Um, so yeah, Sweden, excellent starter nation. Um, I would recommend playing it, definitely. I think this is a big recommendation for me. Um, yeah, you have a lineup which is really nice to have, because having a small premium lineup means you won't get into the cycle of one that's spawning, which can be really, really sad and just completely unfun in my opinion. Especially if you get like a helicopter as well, or if you play air as well, then you can grind out like a AJ37 for example, and you have this nice vegan to go with your lineup. You can play some cast as well, and you can really start to enjoy ground and play ground for the game mode that it is, rather than for mindless grinding. If you don't mind mindless grinding, just get one vehicle. You can get the CV90 because it has slightly favorable matchmaking, or you can get the Christian 2 if you really enjoy playing leopards. You're going to be playing leopards a lot, probably in Germany also. So if you want something different, the CV90 is to be recommended. All right, then finally Israel. Um, I haven't played this one too much, but I played them enough to kind of have an opinion on it, and I have both the premiums here. So the Ramsagol is 11.0, which is a pretty nice BR because the down tiers are quite frequently. Your shell is quite good. It has 590 millimeters of pen. But it does come dangerously close to Challenger mobility, so like the British mobility that they absolutely despised. Your armor isn't fantastic either. So yeah, it has similar issues to the Challengers. Your armor isn't great, and your mobility isn't either. But your shells are great, and at least this is a pretty favorable BR. When you get this vehicle, make sure you take off the mine protection because that just adds 3 tons of extra weight, and you're almost 70 tons at that point. The Macava Mark 2D, I'm pretty sure you can't get anymore because they removed it recently, but they have to do bring it back. This is essentially kind of the same kind of experience. Really good shell um, for its BR, but not so great mobility. This mobility is even worse than this one because they're the same weight, and this has just 250 horsepower less. Um, Again, here also take away the mine protection system, because otherwise you are exceptionally heavy. But for both those vehicles, I'd say I don't think you can. Actually, you could probably. Yeah, I think you can buy them as premium as a First Nation, but I definitely wouldn't recommend playing Israel as a First Nation. Your nation is pretty short, so you can grind it out relatively quickly. But um, yeah, both these vehicles, I think they're definitely better than the challengers. Still, the challengers are exceptionally painful to play, but I really dislike slow vehicles, and I think it's really unfun to play. So I wouldn't recommend it. And that should be all. That's every nation. It's every top tier premium reviewed. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them down below, and I'll be happy to answer. And yeah, thanks for watching.